Welcome back to a new episode of Minecraft. As a disclaimer before we begin, if any of the builds or any of the actions don't really match the previous episode, that's because this episode and the previous one have not been recorded one after the other. This storyline that I'm working on requires me to do a bit of a back and forth, and that will mean that I'm going to be recording some ending stuff first and then start with the beginning and so on. It's just to create a bit of a cinematic experience. But why this episode today, and why this kind of tangent today? I don't really have a structure yet for when I'm going to be doing storyline episodes, or when I'm going to do behind the scenes, or when I'm going to start talking about random stuff. Today I found an opportunity in one of the lines that I prepared for the storyline with Sauron, and that topic is that old habits die hard, and that got me thinking a bit. What old habits do I have that have turned out to be almost like a Pavlovian style of life? And what I mean by that, when a stimuli enters the environment, then you are deemed to do an action that stimuli is related to. I would recommend going and just checking out the Pavlovian experiment that he did with dogs. Though I don't think today this kind of experiments would fly, but why is that important to our everyday lifestyle? It's because think about when you wake up, what's the first thing you do? And I think most of the people are going to answer, I'll check my phone. And then my question is, why? Is that your own instinct? Is that something that you have always done? Is that something that you've only started doing? And if you've only started doing it, ask yourself this question, why? And why do you think you don't have any other habits when you first wake up and, just to check that phone? I used to have it myself, just so everybody is aware. And I recommend doing this, take about a month per year of social media. And you'll find that you will become more aware of this kind of Pavlovian social conditioning that we have endowed ourselves with. Small things like checking your phone in the morning. Since I've started taking this break from social media, I've realized that good couple of years now, besides my alarm, I don't really check anything on my phone. I don't care about my phone in the morning. And that has brought me to realize other things as well. I don't feel as stressed as before, especially in the first part of my morning routine. I don't feel that initial stress of like, oh, what's happening today? What's going on? Because we are bombarded anyway on the way to work, on the way to school, with news. And we all know that news, they like to have ears and eyes glued on them. A lot of news headlines are stress inducing, and they're not so good for our overall mental health. And there's another thing that I've done years ago. I decided to not watch TV anymore. Yes, it's good to keep up with the news and to have a perspective of what's happening in the world, just so you're prepared. But when you see those news outlets taking advantage of certain situations just so they can get more ratings, that becomes a bit of a disgusting habit. I'm not bashing down on good journalists, because certainly there are very good journalists in this world, and I've met a lot of good journalists. However, they are quite rare, and journalists as well, they have to keep a job, they have to put food on the table, so sometimes they'll have to go bad, as the old saying goes. But that's not the point here. My point is, if you have noticed those Pavlovian behaviors, that's the first step towards solving certain issues. And that's implementing new systems. And I'm saying this because this has worked for me. I wouldn't have advocated for it if this hasn't worked for me. Now, what's a system that I've implemented once I've stopped checking my phone in the morning? Well, that was going for a walk. That was enjoying making my coffee, reading, doing a bit of stretching, a bit of an exercise. Meditation is a big one. It's amazing how your mood can shift if you empty your brain for about 10 minutes every day, in the morning at least, just to leave some time for that awareness system to kick in. because we do have an awareness system. Another disclaimer here, please do not take everything that I'm saying as a scientific proof. In the scientific community, there are some arguments that get changed. I've read about it, but in 5 years' time, maybe there's going to be some new nuances that we discover about our consciousness and our beings that are going to replace what we deem to be relevant today. What was I saying? Yeah, if you empty your brain, your mind for about 10 minutes, at the beginning, you'll realize how much space you have for your own thoughts. And you'll find sometimes that while in your meditative state, you'll feel like time has gone in an instant. This is what I've been noticing after a couple of years, 3 years since I've started this. Yeah, about around this time of year, somewhere in March, I don't know. It's going to mark 3 years since I've started doing meditation and something that I call deep dive meditation, where I go to nearly sensory deprivation, but that comes with a lot of dizziness at the beginning, comes with a lot of sleep paralysis as well, if you drift off to sleep. But it's a different kind of sleep that you get from it. Again, if anybody is an expert, please call me out on this and please correct me, because here we like to learn. And if any of the information that we have is deemed to be wrong, then we are open to welcome the new information that might be correct, or at least try to compare notes. Another Pavlovian habit that I used to have, after coming from work, going straight to bed for a quick nap, feeling tired a bit and couldn't be bothered to do anything else. Whereas my gym membership was stagnating and I was paying it and not going to that gym. The gym was also quite close to where I used to live. It was one of those things that I wasn't doing as often as I wanted to. Until one day I was like, okay, I'm not going to start from Monday. I'm not going to start from next week, next month, or the first of each month, or whatever. I'm going to do it now. So that day, after arriving back from work, I was like, okay, what's the worst that can happen? And after about an hour of a workout, nothing bad happened. I actually felt quite good. And since then, I made it a habit to go to the gym more often than I was going, which was like about once a month or so. Yes, I did have some injuries that put me back, but then I was like, oh, if that privilege of going to the gym has been taken away from me, or like was almost taken away from me, that's when I was fighting more for it. And I've changed that. Started eating healthier. I was getting into like a more healthy headspace, just to call it that way. Another Pavlovian thing that influences the way we behave is the environment and people around us. There's an old saying that goes, you're the sum of the 5 people you spend your most time with. And that is true in a sense that our behaviors are shaped by those around us and by the environment that we are surrounded by. But that doesn't stop us from realizing that, for example, if your best 5 friends are gamblers, that you should be too. I have a saying that I used to tell students and to everybody. If there are no good examples around you, you should be the good example. And I used to live by this philosophy since I literally known myself. I wasn't always a good kid, just like many of us. We have our downfalls and our bad habits, which I like to call human frailties, just to not call them bad habits or so. Although calling them out, putting a harsh tone to negative things kind of calls them out and labeling them as they are instead of sugarcoating them. What I was going to say, if you don't really have good examples around you, what's stopping you from becoming a good one? And that way, maybe some friends who are around you are going to notice some unhealthy patterns in their own behavior. And they're going to be like, oh, this dude or this lass is actually trying to better themselves. They are trying to get rid of this. I don't know, I'm giving gambling as a as an example. They're trying to overcome this gambling addiction that they have been struggling with for a while. Just like with anything, gambling addiction, just that we are on the topic, it's also a Pavlovian, probably the prime example of Pavlovian conditioning that we have in our society. Because all these sounds and bells and lights flashing, they appeal to what some self-proclaimed experts are calling on YouTube our monkey brains. That's the part of our brain that hasn't really come up to speed to what's happening really in the society, because it's always attracted to those whistles and bells and bright flashy colors and lights and those encouragements like, oh, come on, gamble more, you'll probably win next time. And a lot of people seem to not be aware that, yeah, you're playing all fun and games and things serious until you start losing your salary worth in a night. Just as a disclaimer, I never had a problem with gambling. I know how hard money is to make, and I know that I worked hard for the money that I have, so I'm not going to waste them in a system that is rigged against me. But a lot of people are like strategizing, and you see them coming up with all these probabilities and all these expectations just to try to justify their potential win. Because, at some point they might win. Who knows? And if they do, good for them. Probably enjoy that. But it's all about algorithms as well. Because we are victims of algorithms. And what I mean by that is just like, I don't have TikTok, but I know enough about its algorithm to stay away from it. And the same goes with probably gambling, because you see someone winning, or even you win a small amount at some point, and that entices you to play even more. And the same goes with TikTok. You see something that you're interested in, you scroll, scroll, scroll endlessly, and then you realize that you wasted a few good hours of your day just on that app. And how the app makes money? Well, it likes to have eyes glued on it. And it rewards this kind of bells and whistles of content creators who are getting loud and funny in quotation marks, because to be fair, someone can be funny without trying to be super loud. And one thing that I like to see, and I think I mentioned this before, I'm watching other smaller creators, and everybody seems to have this kind of chill, kind of relaxed way of making content. And I think that should be more encouraged. I'm not saying, oh, subscribe or comment, like, or whatever, but it would be better if more people appreciated this kind of more laid back and relaxed content as opposed to fast cuts and surprise faces. And I kept saying this on other creators that I used to respect, and I still respect them, don't get me wrong, but the way they were working on their thumbnails before, they were just having snippets of what was going on, but now they created those avatars or like surprise mouse acting all extra. There are some instances where people are funny while being loud. We all know about PewDiePie. Call me a boomer because I've been aware of PewDiePie since he has started. But he is one of those prime examples, and that I managed to work with it and not make it cringe. But I'm going on a tangent here, again, from the main topic. Back to Pavlovian conditioning. Talked about gambling, we talked about TikTok briefly, and we talked about being victims of algorithms. What is the solution that we can implement in our everyday life? Well, change the systems. First of all, do a bit of a self-evaluation. See where you are now and where you want to be. I know this is a very general and a very abstract question to ask yourself. However, it reveals more answers than you might be expecting. And start off with small changes. If tomorrow morning you wake up and you don't check your phone, but the day after tomorrow you wake up and you find yourself on social media before you even open your eyes, and that's okay, as long as the next day you're not doing it anymore and you are putting a conscious effort into not doing it, even if it's resisting for like 5 to 10 minutes. That's still some progress. But sometimes we need to go a bit of a cold shower kind of strategy here. That worked for me when I was like, oh, I'm spending way too much time on social media. It's the first thing that I check when I first wake up in the morning. Let me change that. So I deleted all the apps and I had to struggle of logging in on the browser on the phone. And that's a nightmare. That has helped me because I kind of lost the taste for social media and so on and the content on it. And let's be honest, all the content on it, it's either funny or tries to be funny or shocking. That was one of the habits that I've implemented. I've gone all cold on it. Second step is to replace that bad habit or old habit with something new, something more exciting, something more healthy for you, something that is going to bring you some purpose. Even if it means drinking your coffee in solitude. How long does it take to drink a coffee or a tea in the morning or have your breakfast without your phone next to your side? You'll find out that you get to enjoy that solitude of the morning a bit more, that quietude, that silence that your brain has probably craved for a long time, surrounded by all this noise around us. Because, yeah, everything is noise, from cars passing by to people talking endlessly about topics that you're not really interested in, to our phones and our ways of living. So when you try to stay away from that noise, you'll find out that you'll sleep better. Take a step back and relax, basically. Since I've started doing that, it has changed the way I see my mornings. I always go to sleep excited to wake up the next day and enjoy those first minutes of my day because they're important and kind of kickstarts my day in a way that I see fit and in a way that I can control. And this is just some things that I noticed. In long term, you'll find that you can focus better on reading or doing other tasks that people might find boring. A lot of people they stopped reading books because they don't have time, they lack focus, and they don't really find them interesting. Why? It's because they're being offered a lot of fast-paced content. It's good to stay, and relax sometimes, but this is good exercise for the brain. And I'm not being a nerd here because I've only started reading properly about a year and a half ago. And last year I've challenged myself to read 52 books, equating to about one book per week. I've ended up reading 54. And that was one of those things that kind of surprised me. And I've realized that something has to change if I want to keep my sanity in the long term. And this is why this channel is a bit, it goes at a slower pace because we're not rushing anywhere here. If you're here for a few minutes, if I can get you away from the noise of everyday life, then it means that I've done my job. Okay, so what's the next step into changing your habits for the better? So you've identified the issue, you've taken steps to replace or remove the stimuli and the bad habit from your life. What's the next point? Replacing it with something else. And I'm going to give you an example. My house that I lived in for like 2 years used to be quite messy at the beginning because my mind was quite chaotic. Things were happening that weren't making me too happy and so on. And that was taking a toll on the way that I was arranging my environment. I was being lazy and I was unproductive, and my creativity was at an all-time low. So what I've started doing was I sectioned my living room into 4 different quadrants. Not really quadrants, but 4 different areas. I had my relaxation area where no phones were allowed. I was on the couch in the morning, book was ready there. I had my coaster for a coffee, and my coffee cup was at the ready. So that was my morning and evening area to relax, or whenever I needed to brainstorm something, I was just sitting there meditating and so on. Then I had the deep work and creative work sections. The deep work one was adjacent to the creative workspace. And my creative workspace was next to the things that I was actually creating. The deep workspace was a bit more secluded. The creative workspace was actually acting like a wall to separate everything from my deep workspace because I had two desks. I was quite happy with the layout of my living room back then. So that was deep work and creative space. And then I had my fun slash eating area where I was having my computer, playing some, video games, or that was where I was sitting when I was playing with my phone. And this is a weird thing that was happening. Wherever people were sitting at each of these places, they were having that urge to do something. For example, a lot of people who were, taking a seat in my creative area, they were like, dude, I want to do something creative here. Although the space was not really conditioned to, I didn't have any brushes or any easels out or any canvases or any colors out. It was just the vibe that that area was giving. And I don't know how to explain this scientifically, if it's even a thing that is being discussed in the scientific community of cognitive behavior. But people were sitting in the deep work area. They were like, oh, I feel productive. I feel like I'm on top, and I want to do. I want to get the day done. And in the relaxing area, like people are just chill, and they're like, dude, this is such a relaxing couch and so on. But that sofa wasn't the most comfortable, if I'm honest. But because I kind of imbued it with energy, this is open to interpretation to people. Our vibes and energies, is there something tangible about them? Are they just abstract things? Or are they actually something that might be just open to interpretation, and it's up to everybody to decide for themselves? Okay, so we've identified the bad habits, we removed the stimuli, we made changes, and what do we do now? How do we know that we're going to stick to those changes? There are two options here what you can do. You can force yourself to stay on the schedule for like a week or 10 days or so. We have an old saying that goes, oh, it takes 30 days to establish a habit. But I think it takes less than that. When you see the benefits as well, and with some habits, you have to give them time, like, going to the gym or eating healthy. But this example of not checking your phone in the morning, you can start doing it straight away, and for a week you can literally force yourself. You can put the phone in another room, and if you need an alarm, you just buy one of those old old clocks that they start going crazy in the morning. I used to have those. They were quite funny actually. So you've done that for a week, and you'll see that you're like, oh no, I don't feel the need to check my phone in the morning anymore. Why was I doing it in the first place? And slowly you can start implementing probably the same system or similar systems with other everyday tasks. A second way is to ease yourself into it. What I mean by that, don't be too harsh if you fail. And this was one of those things that was discussed on the Impenski's podcast. I forgot which one of them, but they were saying something on the lines of, if you fail once, it's no problem, but don't make a habit of failing. That was summarized. These are not the exact words, but this is mostly the idea as I understood it. So, yeah, you fail a couple of times a week at the beginning, but then you're like, if I give myself a 10-day streak of not checking my phone in the morning and I achieve it, then I'm quite proud of myself because I've overcome this habit for the amount of time that I intended. However, if I fail and like after 7 days I check my phone, you're like, oh, I'm not really good enough. But you have to realize that you haven't done your bad habit for 7 days, which is a good progress as opposed to doing it every day. And slowly but surely, you'll find out that in the long term, you'll see your life a bit different to the people around you. And I'm not saying that you're better than everybody. No, that's not the point. The point is that you're living a healthier life than what you used to, and then you realize your old bad habits in other people. Because we tend to see our worst versions in others. That's just the way we humans work. Yeah, so ease yourself into it, and don't be too harsh on yourself, because that's important to keep yourself focused. Enjoy the process. It's not going to be an easy road, but as long as you replace one bad habit at a time, enjoy it, because your future self will thank you. And I'm not saying that you should strive to be perfect. No, nobody's perfect. And why should anybody try to be perfect? That would be probably a boring life. But if you have a bad habit, as a disclaimer, a bad habit that is not affecting anybody around you but yourself, because these are what bad habits are, something that affects us directly. But as long as it's not affecting anybody and you want to stick to it, and you find yourself that you haven't, made any progress, and if you don't really want to change, if you feel like it's part of your personality, then take responsibility and admit it. There's a lot of people who smoke in this world, but equally about 90% of them are like, oh, I'm going to quit later. And is that true? Are they actually going to quit? Or just saying that because they feel guilty in the moment, because they have been conditioned to, feel bad about it? Yes, it's affecting it. Yes, it is unhealthy. But if you don't want to give up on it, then just take responsibility and admit it. Yes, it's a bad habit that is mine. I know it's affecting me, and I am fully aware of it, and I'll take full responsibility for it. And what I'm saying is, I'm not saying you don't pick up smoking, or like I do not condone smoking as a smoker myself. However, what I realized with me, the amount of cigarettes I was smoking in a day since I started admitting that, this is my bad habit, it kind of has reduced. It had the opposite effect. Instead of smoking more, I actually started smoking less, way less than I used to. And I don't know if that's one of those things that, oh yeah, I'm taking responsibility, and some things are changing. But I definitely felt that oh, it's a bad habit. Yeah, it's not that interesting anymore. That now that I've admitted it, I think, as I said, calling something out and naming it and putting it out there and taking responsibility for it, just to add this at the end, I think it kind of gives power to the good things, and decreases that power from the bad habits that we have. So I hope this tangent has helped anybody who has been with us. If you have been with us up to this point, I recommend you going and doing a bit of research about the Pavlovian conditioning. About there's a book called The Power of Habit that I recommend, and I've read last year. I recommend going onto the Impenski's podcast. I don't think they need my shout out, but if you haven't heard of them, they are two Minecraft creators who have decided to share their experiences on their own podcasts. And I've been a fan of it since they've started, essentially. And if you have anything that you would like to add, or any stories about good habits that you've implemented while replacing old bad habits, then let us know below. And I hope that you're doing your best to live towards a better version of yourself. And again, one of those things why I keep telling people to drink water. And here's going to be a quick 1 minute story. I used to be very dehydrated until I started forcing myself to drink water. And since then, I've become addicted to it. And you'll realize how dehydrated you generally are after you start drinking that 2 liters of water every day. Or just for scientific reasons here, disclaimer, it varies for everybody. And just like everything that I said in this video, it varies from person to person. So stay unique, stay true to yourself. Let's try to be better, and drink water. And that's me out. Take care and goodbye.